A couple of years ago, my husband and I reached the collective decision that we were fed up with the typical Valentine's Day pressures, cards, flowers, last-minute bookings, and the like. Instead, we opted for a more unconventional approach, choosing to extend the celebration throughout an entire week. The rationale behind this decision was to alleviate the stress and tension that often accompanies the days leading up to Valentine's Day, allowing us to spread the romance over a more leisurely time frame. Living in the UK, we envisioned a tranquil escape to Lake Geneva, locating a secluded cabin for a week-long retreat. The plan involved finding a cabin remotely situated, preferably with a quaint restaurant just a short drive away. Coincidentally, my husband had spent part of his childhood around Lake Geneva, providing him with an opportunity to reconnect with old friends and family while we enjoyed our romantic getaway. It seemed like the perfect trip, and after securing some time off from work, we scoured various websites, stumbling upon a charming semi-resort. This semi-resort, a collection of cabins designed for couples, featured units comfortably distanced from each other, connected by small gravel paths leading to a central area. The central hub boasted a restaurant owned by a renowned chef, a reception lodgia, and a spa, with additional facilities tastefully scattered around the property. Although resembling a resort, the architecture maintained a sense of privacy and exclusivity. While the price was on the higher side, we viewed it as an opportunity to combine a holiday with an intimate and cost-effective Valentine's celebration. Upon our arrival, the staff exhibited impeccable politeness, instantly recognizing our names from the online booking. Our bags were swiftly handled, and we were presented with complimentary cocktails, while we marveled at the breathtaking view of the lake through a vast glass window. The tranquility of the surroundings, far removed from the hustle and bustle of city life, was a welcome escape. As we sipped our cocktails, a man named Luca joined us. Sporting an athletic build and donned in white tennis attire, he introduced himself with a European accent that defied easy categorization. While his English accent was nearly perfect, subtle variations hinted at his non-English background. Luca appeared friendly enough, engaging us in conversation about our origin in the UK. During our chat, he casually mentioned that I resembled his wife and suggested a future meeting. This peculiar connection lingered as he often searched for his doppelganger during our walks around the resort, seeking someone with curly blonde hair. As our stay progressed, it became apparent that Luca's presence was unavoidable. His unsettling intensity during eye contact and his tendency to redirect conversations towards himself left me with a sense of discomfort. Despite the initial unease, we focused on enjoying our time, exploring various activities within the resort. However, during one particular night, a disturbing incident unfolded. In the darkness of our cabin, with only a lamp illuminating the space, I noticed a figure standing down a path leading into the resort. The silhouette remained still, observing something or someone. The realization that the figure could see me through the glass heightened my fear, prompting me to call my husband and raise the alarm. Yet, when he arrived, the mysterious figure had vanished, leaving only questions in its wake. The subsequent days saw Luca's frequent appearances on our path, raising suspicions about his involvement in the nighttime incident. Disliking Luca's self-centered demeanor and persistent attempts to connect our lives, I grew increasingly wary. One night, as I moved to the sofa due to my husband's loud snoring, I noticed the same figure again. This time it stood near the path leading into the resort, watching silently. Despite the resort's attempts to dismiss the incidents as potential natural noises, my anxiety persisted. The turning point came on Valentine's night when, after a night of revelry and intimacy, we heard a frantic knocking on the window. Someone was attempting to unlock it, and footsteps circled our cabin. Terrified, we alerted the resort security, but upon investigation, no signs of intrusion were found. The morning after, as I hesitantly mentioned Luca's odd behavior, the resort informed us that Luca had stayed alone, contradicting my belief that his wife was nearby. Despite reporting the incidents to local police, there was little they could do given Luca's non-Swiss nationality. The resort offered compensation, but the unsettling experiences cast a shadow on our romantic retreat, making it unlikely for us to return anytime soon. If you liked this story, subscribe to the channel to stay tuned. This incident unfolded approximately a year ago, precisely during the Valentine's Day season. The recollection is vivid as the days leading up to it were marked by a sense of apprehension and self-reflection, fueled by the aftermath of a breakup a few months prior. The split resulted in my ex retaining our shared flat, and I found myself relocating to the outskirts of the city due to exorbitant London flat prices. Drowning my sorrows in a bottle of Prosecco one weekend, I decided to shake things up. Adjusting the radius on my dating apps, I attempted to secure a Valentine's date. Navigating the complexities of London's dating scene, often characterized by logistical challenges and unmet expectations, proved to be an intriguing venture. Acknowledging my own self-awareness, I recognized that I might not be the most attractive guy out there. Skepticism arose when encountering profiles seemingly too good to be true, often revealed by subsequent messages promoting dubious endeavors. However, amidst this, I matched with Becca, someone seemingly within my league, residing not too far from my location. Opting for a pre-Valentine's Day drink at the local pub, The Crown, we aimed to keep the encounter casual and devoid of heightened romantic expectations. Becca appeared affable and humorous, providing a welcome distraction from the lingering thoughts of my ex's solitary Valentine's Day. On the appointed date, I indulged in a customary beer for courage and set off to The Crown. Communicating my progress to Becca, I discovered that she had sought refuge in a nearby restaurant due to rowdy behavior at the pub. Adjusting plans, I opted for the longer route to avoid an eerie, semi-abandoned estate, a decision that would later prove pivotal. As I neared the restaurant, Becca's tone shifted, urging me to hasten my arrival. Uncomfortable vibes crept in, and the atmosphere took on an unsettling quality. Alone on the dimly lit streets, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Becca's insistence and the unexpected fullness of the restaurant on the eve of Valentine's Day added to the growing unease. Approaching the restaurant with caution, the situation took an unexpected turn. Becca's sudden silence, coupled with the revelation that the restaurant was not booked out as claimed, raised concerns. Inside, the truth unfolded. The place was far from crowded, and the staff had no knowledge of Becca's supposed inquiry about a table. Contemplating reaching out to the mysterious individual posing as Becca, I hesitated. The uncanny notion of prolonged interaction with someone fabricating a normal persona giving me the creeps. The realization struck that they knew my exact location, and a sense of vulnerability set in. Choosing an Uber for my journey home, I couldn't shake the feeling of being observed, prompting me to request a drop-off as close to my residence as possible. The unsettling experience lingered, fostering an inclination to consider relocation to a different part of the city, driven by a newfound urgency to distance myself from the unknown presence that had infiltrated my sense of security. It all commenced on the 7th of February. The quaint independent coffee shop where I worked had decided to embrace the Valentine's Day spirit. My colleagues and I spent the entirety of our shift adorning the place with pink and red decorations, inscribing romantic quotes on the blackboard menu, and infusing an air of romanticism throughout. Although it was an enjoyable way to spend our time, as I finished my shift and strolled back to my flat, a subtle pang of loneliness crept in. The awareness of being single and alone on Valentine's Day dampened my spirits. In an attempt to remedy the situation, I contemplated resorting to Tinder or Bumble to secure a last-minute date. However, the prospect of finding a genuine connection within the next 7 days seemed rather slim. Resigned to another Valentine's Day alone, I arrived home to discover a pink envelope in my mailbox. Admittedly, it brought a small smile to my face. The idea of a secret admirer seemed straight out of a cheap romance novel, and it genuinely lifted my mood. Upon opening the envelope, I found a note that simply said, 7 days to go, with no romantic message or embellishments. It struck me then that there was no indication on the envelope, or the note confirming it was addressed to me. No name, no address, nothing. The uncertainty made me feel a bit foolish, entertaining the possibility that it might not be meant for me at all. Perhaps someone had sent their Valentine's card to the wrong person. Despite these thoughts, I held onto the envelope and card as I ascended to my flat, resuming my evening. The next morning, the incident had slipped my mind until I returned home to find another pink envelope in my mailbox. To my surprise, a small brown paper package accompanied it. I couldn't deny the excitement that surged within me. This was no mistake. The person had deliberately placed these items, raising the likelihood of having a secret admirer. As I eagerly unwrapped the package, my excitement dissipated. Inside was a small, worn teddy bear, showing signs of neglect and grime from a long existence. The fur was matted, and one of its eyes was missing, presumably pulled out by a child years before. The accompanying note, similar to the previous one, now read, "6 days to go." It dawned on me that whoever was behind these mysterious gifts might not be entirely stable. What initially sparked excitement now triggered nervous anticipation. The more I dwelled on it, the more frightened I became. This wasn't unfolding like a dreamy romance. Instead, it appeared to be heading in the opposite direction. Concerned, I confided in a friend from work, who took the situation more seriously. They suggested that even if the gestures were meant affectionately, they still crossed personal boundaries, urging me to consider contacting the police. Upon returning home that evening, my apprehension intensified. Once again, there was a note in my apartment mailbox indicating that I had 5 days to go. Fed up and uneasy, I wrote a note, politely but firmly requesting the anonymous sender to cease their actions. I posted the message on the front entrance of my apartment building, hoping it would convey my discomfort and put an end to the unwarranted attention. A nightly routine of mine involved taking a shower before bed. On this particular night, as I finished my shower, something caught my eye in the otherwise pristine white bathroom. A tiny glass eye, unmistakably the missing eye from the teddy bear, sat on the windowsill. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. Someone had been watching me closely enough to know my evening routine and strategically place the eye where I couldn't miss it. The glass eye served as an eerie message, signaling that they were observing my every move. In a state of panic, I called the police, sharing the unsettling details. I exchanged my previous note for one that sternly read, "The police have been contacted. Leave me alone." Miraculously, the unwanted gifts ceased, but the psychological impact lingered. I found myself scrutinizing people in the coffee shop and those passing my flat, wondering if they were the mysterious sender. The fear persisted, and I questioned if they would ever give up their unsettling pursuit. We wanted to enjoy some quality time together, my girlfriend and I. You see, she's a nurse and has to work night shifts. The hospital she's employed at requires about 5 years of experience before you can even think of working the day shift. This wouldn't be a big issue, but I work as a marketer with a typical 9-to-5 office job. It's challenging to find time for each other, and our sleep schedules are chaotic, to say the least. So, when Valentine's Day rolled around on a day and night that we were both working, we got really frustrated. It's hard to express the feeling of being cheated out of time, like there won't be a moment to sit down and truly enjoy our relationship for what it is. Despite the challenges, we decided not to let our conflicting schedules ruin our plans. We opted to visit a city for a weekend away. Valentine's Day fell on a Thursday, but we thought a little trip that weekend would be the next best thing, maybe even better. She had been insistent on visiting Oak Ridge in Tennessee. Her grandfather had worked there back in the day, and it had always fascinated her. She often shared creepy facts about the place and insisted that she had to visit one day. It was roughly an 8-hour drive from where we lived, so we struck a deal. I would drive the entire way there, and she would take the wheel while we were in the city. She got the better end of the bargain, but that's what you do when you care for your girlfriend. However, something strange happened, something that has tainted my memory ever since. When I look back on that weekend away, I don't think about cuddling up on the couch or the fun places we visited. We arrived on a Friday night, and she mostly slept in the car, but felt really tired. She assured me she'd be able to sleep that night and be awake and normal for the next day. It turned out to be a great day. We visited the museum and learned about the Manhattan Project. We even toured the plant where her grandfather used to work. Or at least, we're pretty sure he's deceased now. The tour guide said it was where most of the work on the bombs was done, and, well, he worked on them. It was crazy. However, the day didn't last long. By the time it was dark, we were out of ideas for things to do, and quite frankly, out of energy. We decided to visit our favorite fast food joint, Wendy's, don't judge us, and she was driving as we made our way there. It was only a 10 to 15 minute drive. She had her music on, and I was just looking out the window. At one point, a blue Mustang was beside her car. We were stopped at a red light, and I looked into the other car's window. I saw a very old man who looked unhappy, miserable even. His skin looked unnaturally pale. I'm not sure when he started, but he was staring at me. It wasn't until I looked into the car that I noticed it. Not gonna lie, it kind of freaked me out. We made eye contact for about 5 seconds, and then, for the briefest of moments, he smiled. It was so fast, it must have been a split second. His mouth went into a smile and then back into a frown. It was the strangest thing I've ever seen. I looked over at my girlfriend and she hadn't noticed at all. She was jamming out to Bohemian Rhapsody. The light turned green and we were in motion again. I didn't take my eyes off that car for the rest of the ride, at least until they turned. But that's not the craziest part. It gets even weirder. We were planning on leaving Monday morning, and on Sunday night we went out to eat at an actual restaurant this time. We weren't in the mood for fast food again. We found a local restaurant with decent reviews on Google. I ordered my favorite food, deep-fried chicken, and we were enjoying our meal. I had completely forgotten about the strange man I saw in the car. About halfway through my meal, I noticed him again. This time he was in the restaurant, staring at me. When I noticed, he did that exact same facial movement, from a miserable frown to a split-second smile and back to a frown. My reaction might have been unwarranted. He hadn't done anything wrong to me. I was enjoying a nice meal with my girlfriend, which is why it was so strange for my fight or flight response to kick in. I confronted him, and to my absolute surprise, he never said a word. He just sat there, frowning at me. I asked him what his problem was, but my girlfriend told me it was time to head home. She knows I can get a little worked up and wanted to avoid a confrontation. "It's not illegal to look at people," she said. Still, there was something about that man that made me feel so strange, so watched. Monday morning came, and we were about an hour into the car ride home. She was asleep again, and, you guessed it, I saw this freaky old man again. But the sun was way worse. For starters, he was driving a totally different car. To make matters even worse, he had been in the left lane as if he was going to pass me, but he didn't. He just paced me for about a mile. I noticed that there was a car next to me, and it wasn't until I looked over to flip the bird that I recognized him. It was the creepy old man, but he wasn't frowning anymore. That smile that he'd only been able to muster for a split second was now permanently stained on his aged face. It was the most horrifying thing I've ever seen in my life. Suddenly, he turned his head forward and aggressively veered his car in my direction. Reflexively, I slammed the brakes and swerved off to the side of the road. My wife was immediately shaken awake, and all we could see was his vehicle speeding off in the distance through a cloud of dirt. My heart was racing like crazy, and by the time I could process my girlfriend screaming and asking what's going on, I started to feel myself choked up. We discussed whether we should waste our time calling the police, but I was so scared that the best course of action seemed to get out of that godforsaken town as fast as possible. The rest of the ride home happened without incident, and I haven't seen him since. Needless to say, that was the least romantic and most insane Valentine's Day ever.